Okay, thanks you guys for coming out. Obviously this is an important issue. We're going to go over today why it is that it's so very important for us to be aware of not only what we're eating, but what our intuition is telling us about the world around us. So what the presentation here today is going to be about is how a lot of our world leaders, in my mind, there's something that's hypocritical, to be honest, about how they advocate for certain changes, but don't actually follow that what they preach. And not for me. A little bit about myself really quickly. My mom was diagnosed with MS in 1990. To this day, she still manages and owns her own business. She's Queen of the Red Hat Society in Calgary and still does not have a walker or a wheelchair or anything of that sort. She actually tries advocating for a stress-free life. And in 2005, my friend and I kind of founded a business called Being Wellness and Healing, which at the time was about lifestyle coaching and good old-fashioned Reiki healing, actually, was where we started. But in 2009, decided to take it up a notch and became a certified Body Talk practitioner. Body Talk is a modality that helps us become aware of the consciousness that is held in each one of our organs. So each part of our body orientates to a different aspect of our psyche. And so Body Talk helps us to alleviate and identify where some of our stress factors are coming from our lives and what our body is telling us, essentially. Nowadays, I serve full-time at the South Okanagan Naturopathic Clinic with Dr. Sherry Ure from 2013. So fit for thee, not for me, like I said, the art of hypocrisy. So the importance of eating healthy, we're going to cover that in this presentation, the agenda of our world leaders, where they're going with their plan moving forward here, the value of educating ourselves and staying connected as well. So, the importance of eating healthy. The human body has 3 brains. This is something that has been confirmed now by science. It is not theory, even though Eastern philosophy has known about it for centuries. What we're going to talk about here is there's actually a brain in the heart as well as the gut as well too. So it actually finds out that there's actually quite a bit of credence and credibility to what Eastern philosophy has been aware of for centuries. So first off, in the heart brain, this is very interesting. So this is some documentation from the HeartMath Institute. They're located in Colorado. So this is the distribution and location of the intrinsic cardiac ganglia. So intrinsic meaning internal, cardiac meaning heart, ganglia meaning clusters of nerve cells. And you can see on the slide there, they're all around the orifices of the right atrium of the heart. So all those speckled dots, those are all these intrinsic cardiac ganglia that are that map themselves out all over the heart there. And what they actually do is they actually read a lot of information that's in the blood as it comes back into the heart. So literally, as the heart is pumping oxygenated blood all around the body, as it delivers its information and nutrition to wherever it's got to go, as that blood comes back to the body, it is basically sending and returning information from the cells, the waste from the cells, comes back in, and the return information, I guess you can say, comes from, goes through these cardiac ganglia. So that's really cool. The heart brain itself has about 40,000 different neurons in it, so it's quite a large nervous system in the heart as well too. The heart itself generates about 60 times more electromagnetic energy than the head brain does. The HeartMath Institute, like I said, they're in Colorado. They've actually proven that the heart actually sends more information to the head than the head sends to the heart. Dopamine and oxytocin, 90 to 95% of the body's supply of these very valuable neurohormones are located in the heart. And as well, not only with this nervous system, the heart still does all its other functions like respiration and circulation. So I don't know how you guys can see at the bottom there, 2015 these images are from. So this is images that are not even 2 years old yet. This is from, again, the HeartMath Institute. So this is zoomed in on one of those ganglia, and you can see those little black dots there. Those are the little cell bodies that are located inside those nerve cells. That looks a lot like a human brain, and they're literally, like I said, spread out all over the heart. So zooming in a little bit closer on those images, intrinsic, of course, like I said, meaning internal heart. Afferent means interconnected neurons. So they actually all communicate with each other as well too, which is also very interesting. So for the gut brain itself, the enteric nervous system itself is something that's been known since the early 20th century.
Sometimes it's referred to as the second brain or the small intestine brain or stomach brain, but as we just talked about, the heart brain is something that's relatively new as well too, that the HeartMath Institute has found out. So even though it was discovered almost 100 years ago, it's something that's been largely just ignored by medical colleges as if it doesn't even exist. And of course, the study nowadays is called neurogastroenterology. What's interesting is that the Human Genome Project, perhaps you guys have heard of that, that received about $2 billion of funding last year where they're literally mapping out the human genome. The study of the enteric nervous system, mapping out all the different microbiomes and probiotics that live inside of our gut, has received about $3 billion in funding from the USA alone for 2017. So this awareness of this field is something that is being funded now more than the Genome Project itself. So that's where the money is going in the future here. The gut brain is something that encapsulates the entire digestive system. On that image there, I don't know how well you guys can see, but this is basically just cutting the small intestine in half. The lumen is kind of where the food goes through. That's the big hole that's towards the center there. The enteric nervous system, the stomach brain itself, on that image there, there's kind of a yellow network. I know you can see the red and the blue ones pretty clearly, but there's a yellow network there that goes through the walls of the intestine. That's where that nervous system is located. Like I said, it runs through the entire digestive system, mouth to anus. It also connects through the heart, the lungs, liver, pancreas. The entire endocrine system actually is connected through interconnectivity like this. The gut brain itself is a neurochemical storehouse that it produces and utilizes every class of neurotransmitters and endorphins found in the head brain, including 95% of the body's serotonin is produced through the GI system. Serotonin is really important. That is one of our primary mood, like good mood neurohormones. Things like a belly laugh, for example. Why a belly laugh feels so good. That's serotonin that's coming through. So moving forward, this is a big deal. These are some microscopic images of the enteric nervous system. These are just grown in a petri dish, so these aren't exactly as beautiful as the HeartMath Institute's images are, but you can see there's two different layers. There's the myenteric layer, and there's also the submucosal ganglia as well too. The average small intestine is large too. It's about 6 to 7 meters, so that's like probably about here to the door away, all wrapped up inside of us. So that's pretty huge, as we know. The average enteric nervous system as well too. We talked about 40,000 of them in the heart brain. There's about 500 million to 1 billion neurons inside of the intestines. So this is a massive brain system that's spread out throughout the entire system. And it functions independently as well too. Like even as the vagus nerve is severed, it still functions on its own as well too. And like other brains, the enteric nervous system also has neuroplasticity, which meaning it can learn and grow new networks as well. It's also very sensitive as well, as we know. The parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. So sympathetic is our nervous system that's responsible for fight-flight. So when we're in stressful situations, often we can lose our sense of grounding, or reproduction, digestion, immune system. They all kind of take a back seat where we're in that fight-flight stress mode. So it's really important to try and stay in parasympathetic as much as we can. That's where we are relaxed, we are healing, we are in a state where we are not anxious, obviously, so we can do some thinking. And as most of us know, when we're in stress, we obviously don't have an appetite, and we find it difficult to swallow, and we can even actually, in times of acute stress, vomit or reject the stomach contents. And the enteric brain is also very old as well, too. The enteric brain, it first helps life determine what's a poison, what's good for me. So our good-bad reflex comes from the enteric nervous system. In fact, all forms of life might not necessarily have a cerebral brain, but it does have a digestive system. So that gives you an idea of just how old in life processes this brain system is. And also, we talked about this already, but it also helps us deal with core survival, physical energy, and immune system function for safety. So stress eating, when things happen that are stressing us out in our environment, when we feel like our emotional boundaries have been crossed, our personal safety has been jeopardized, often we can resort to comfort foods as a sort of consolation for ourselves, which can create a vicious circle feedback loop of discernment problems. We could literally have, when we have a bad gut or we feel kind of stick to our stomach, we can often have a hard time learning new information, being willing to sit through things, or even just being able to determine or decipher our own intuition about what our environment is telling us. A healthy gut is dependent on a healthy supply of microbiomes, a healthy bacteria in the gut. The more nutritious the food source, obviously, the more the bodies will feel nourished and be better suited for reason, and just in general, we can handle stress. So microbiomes themselves, as I talked about, we've invested about $3 billion in the USA alone about researching microbiomes coming up this year alone. There's 10,000 different species estimated. I don't even know that yet to be sure, but estimated about 10,000 different species of them. They number about 50 trillion cells in the average body. And when these microbiomes are not fed properly, they're unable to perform their functions, breaking down food properly. In fact, diets that are high in fat, salt, sugar, that kind of things that are high in processed foods, we can literally starve our bacteria to death, depleting their numbers in the digestive system. So this is why often we can feel, like if we're filling ourselves up with junk food, essentially, we can have a full belly and feel sick to our stomach like we've eaten too much, but we're still hungry. We're still craving some sort of food source for ourselves, whether it's water or nutrition in general. So when we're in that state of need, essentially, it affects all of our ability to be reasonable, of course, right? Because we're always in that state of craving. The hungry ghost, as the Buddhists like to say. So this, in turn, affects our ability to effectively, intuitively interpret what our enteric gut is attempting to tell us about what is good for us and what is bad for us for our daily lives. So why is this so important? Well, this is something that I was really surprised to hear. IBS and colon cancer rates are absolutely skyrocketing in Generation X and millennials by about 4 times as much compared to their parents. The baby boomers who were born kind of post-World War II, their parents, the World War II generation, you may remember a well-cooked meal, a full round meal was, cooking from scratch. That was normal back in the day. Now everything is always go, 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 right? So colon cancer rates are absolutely skyrocketing right now. About 500,000 Americans each year still die from cancer. Cardiovascular conditions like heart disease, obviously related to cholesterol, they still remains number 2 of the most fatal conditions that you can have, with about 700,000 Americans dying every year. And number 1, even if they were able to diagnose you, iatrogenic illness, which is the mortality rate which is derived from the treatment of medical conditions, still kills almost 1 million people a year. So that's like misdiagnosis, complications from surgery. 300,000 people die from prescription drug mix-up every year. So even if they were able to diagnose you with something, they not necessarily can help you. So, fit for thee, not for me. What their plan is here moving forward. Henry Kissinger is quoted as saying, depopulation should be the highest priority when it comes to U.S. foreign policy towards the third world. And Bill Gates, he said the world has about 6.8 billion people, we're over 7 billion now. That's headed up towards 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccinations, healthcare, reproductive system control, as we could reduce that number by about 10 to 15% perhaps. So they're actively moving towards attempting to control the population. So they have a plan for it. Elimination of hunger through GMO foods. Like I said earlier, there's nothing that beats good old-fashioned organic. So when you have billions and billions of dollars, I'll tell you, they're not eating GMO foods. They're eating organic things. They're eating AAA Alberta beef and all that kind of stuff, free-range organic meats. Elimination of disease via mandatory vaccinations. This is interesting. Angela Merkel, Chancellor Angela Merkel from current Chancellor of Germany, when the swine flu kind of came out, she advocated that everyone go and get their vaccination shots. And she was recommending one called Pandemrix. But she herself was given Celavipan, if I'm saying that right. So she was actually given a different vaccination than the one that she was advocating for the public, which is very interesting. She also gave it to some other politicians and German soldiers as well, too. And what's interesting, John D. Rockefeller, who's the guy in the middle there, of course, he's the world's first billionaire. He was one of the founders of the modern medical system, which is a lot of its petroleum derivatives. He actually himself kept his homeopath as his own personal doctor up until his death, actually. So he himself wouldn't even use the own medicines that he recommended for others. One of the things that they're working on as well, too, obviously, is elimination of world poverty through globalization and trade. That's as long, like Kevin was saying, that's as long as you're playing ball with them, right? If you're not playing ball, then they will impose trade sanctions and just make life difficult for you, right? So the more dependent that you get on globalization, the less, obviously, ability to support yourself locally you have to be able to defend yourself against globalization. Elimination of natural disasters via weather modification. Weather modification has been around since 60s and 70s, since the Vietnam War for sure. You can actually go to weathermodification.com. There's a company that's for hire, and they will. There's insurance companies who employ them. They've made it rain in Africa, which is something that they brag about, which is not a bad thing, I guess, when you look at it in theory. But again, a lot of this stuff is experimental. So that's kind of what my issue is with a lot of their plan, is that they may try things that work in a lab in a controlled environment, but the world itself is not a controlled environment. So there's a lot of variables and factors that goes into this plan that they have that sometimes can blow up in their face. Education standards like the Common Core program, that's in the USA. But that's an education program that is based in, if a child can actually identify or explain why they have reached a certain answer that they have, they'll actually be given a passing grade. So they could literally say 3 times 4 is 11. And as long as they can identify or justify why they reached that answer, they'll actually be given a passing grade on that. So the Common Core program does not necessarily create or prepare kids for college. Bill Gates himself, he doesn't enroll his kids in schools that even use the Common Core program, even though he himself has invested over $170 million last year alone. Elimination of pollution via green technology revolution, that's something that we're all aware of. And then elimination of the bonds of human labor via robot technology. The Rockefellers obviously are our major endorsers and major investors in the green revolution. And of course, robot technology, Bill Gates has his fingers all over that as well too. Again, these are great theories, but when they're actually applied, human labor is in direct competition with technological advancement. So in their eyes, they're moving the world towards a completely automated system, which, they'll try and make it easy for us to pay for a cashless society and things like that. But like I said, they're kind of hypocritical about what's right for us, yet not for them. So fit for thee, but not for me. So that's pretty much one more slide here, what you can do. So these are some websites if you guys want to jot them down. But what you can do is, of course, independent research with an open mind and scrutiny about everything that you read and hear. Practice what you preach as well, too, by living by example. And then, of course, open source media is something that I personally endorse wholeheartedly. Locals supporting locals, we're a great organization. Those are one of the things that we can get involved in starting locally here. There's nothing that we can do about weather modification here today, obviously. Maybe we can work towards that down the road, but for right now, it's important to get organized. Being Wealth and Healing, we're exploring the realms of human consciousness and healing. The Corbett Report and NewsBud as well too. Those are 2 open source investigative websites that I really endorse as well too. So that is it. Fit for thee, not for me. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. So I hope that helped open your minds a little bit more to what's truly really going on here. So, and that's why we're going to start our talk show here, which I got to speed things along here because we only got until 5 o'clock here, but I'm going to be discussing that actually with Brian Thiessen, and he actually has that in his political platform here, all this AI, artificial intelligence that's coming forward here, and they're going to be replacing a lot of our jobs, and people have no idea that the kind of technology that they have. So what you see now, we already know that they're usually 50 to 100 years ahead, so they're not showing us a lot of this. So when you look at and I often ask people when people often ask me, Kev, why are they doing this? Why are they putting these smart meters that are harmful, these GMOs that are harmful, and as you pointed out here, it's about depopulation. So I ask people, do you think we're overpopulated? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, you just signed your death warrant right there. You just agreed with them. And again, I'm going to have to go back to the questions I asked you earlier. Do you trust your government? Do you trust mainstream media? Where's all this information coming from? And a lot of scientists that we used to have faith in, like David Suzuki and all that, you got to start to question those guys too. Some of them have lost some of their integrity there. I'll just put it that way there, because I know a lot of people like David Suzuki. I met him myself, and he wrote in my first calendar because of his stance on GMOs. But he is a big proponent of depopulation. So I'm not ready to go yet. So if you do think we're overpopulated, I'd really appreciate it. Just start with yourself.